Hey everyone, welcome to the Virtual Executive Director Podcast. My name is Becky Caldwell and I'm your host. I'm an executive coach for nonprofit and mission-driven leaders, and I also serve as the actual executive director of the Virginia Highlands Festival in Abingdon, Virginia. Before we dive into this week's content, which is an interview with Chef Travis Milton about unintentional mentors, I do have a few quick announcements. First of all, on February 29th, which is a Saturday, I'll be speaking at the Create Virginia conference and speaking specifically to crafters and artists who want to set up booths at festivals. I'll be talking about how to make the most of that opportunity. And then on Wednesday, March 4th, in Abingdon at the Barter Theater, we will be presenting, the Virginia Highlands Festival will be presenting Chef Travis Milton and Chef Sean Brock in conversation on stage, and they will be talking about Southern cooking, Appalachian cuisine, heritage foods, foodways, seed saving. Who knows what will come out of their mouths because they are lifelong friends. So, if you would like to get tickets, I'm not sure how to get tickets for Create Virginia, actually. I'll put the link in the show notes. But if you'd like to get tickets for the Chef Travis Milton and Sean Brock event, then I'll also put a link in the show notes. But you can get those tickets at bartertheater.com. That's theater with an R-E. Or by calling the Barter Theater box office. I will include that number in the show notes. I have a lot of show notes to do this week, I am realizing. Okay, next announcement, Patreon. I would like to welcome Janet Stark as our newest Patreon contributor. Janet, thank you so much for supporting the podcast. Everyone else, hey, this is a great time to tap the link in the show notes and join us as a Patreon supporter. I have levels starting at just $2 a month, and I sincerely hope that this podcast brings you at least $2 of value every month. If it doesn't, please stop listening and wasting your time. Go find something else that helps you out more right now. But Patreon is really important, you guys. It's not free to create a podcast, and your support does mean the world to me. It really does. So thank you. Thank you, Janet. Thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. Next announcement. I still have 9 slots available for executive coaching in the first half of this year. And let me explain what executive coaching does. Executive coaching is something that helps you fulfill your biggest vision and dream and your biggest goals for yourself in your job. So I help people get unstuck. I help nonprofit leaders in particular to re-empower them, re-empower yourselves. And I help you set goals that are actually measurable and achievable in a 13-week time period. So if that sounds like something you'd like to do, email me and let's find out if this is going to be something that's good for both of us. My email is becky@virtualexecutivedirector.com, or you can find me on Facebook through the Virtual Executive Director Facebook page. If you're a member of our Executive Director Mastermind, just message me through that. And you can also reach me on Instagram at virtual_exec. I believe that's it for announcements right now. So let's get on with the show. This is an interview with Chef Travis Milton, and I was inspired to chat with him about unintentional mentors. These are the people who, for better or worse, inspire us, and maybe they don't realize it. So here we go. On with the show. Hey, cheers.
Cheers.
I love the sound of these. Yes. Nothing like $10 wine out of a Riedel glass.
Yeah, I know, right? Kind of the way I roll. You're the opposite way. I was drinking like $140 wine out of my I've got a set of wine glasses that are based off of planets in the Star Wars universe, and
Nice.
and they're cheap. But
did you break Alderaan?
no, Alderaan didn't come in there.
Oh.
There's Hoth, the Death Star, Tatooine, and Dagobah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
That'd be
no,
funny if they sent you Alderaan, but it's in pieces.
Pre-broken?
Yeah.
That would be perfect.
All right, so we are talking about unintentional mentors. Those people in your life who... my dogs. This is going to be a tricky time of day as people are coming
Driving
home.
by and coming
yeah,
home.
yeah. Okay, that's all right. We'll just come back to it.
Sorry.
I would say I have the worst podcasting setup, but you said you've podcasted from the side of the road in your truck.
When we were doing, it was the next to last episode of my New York Jets podcast. I was in the Walmart parking lot in Johnson City, and in the middle of me giving like a dissertation on my thoughts on the offensive line of the team, like a elderly person decided to remove their adult diaper in front of me in the parking lot, and I had to give a play-by-play. Like I was, yeah, it was amazing.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I've got a microphone. I hook it like straight up into here. My truck is oddly, since there's so much crap in it, acoustically sound, so I can record. I recorded one where I was sitting in a Walgreens parking lot eating fistfuls of cheesecake because I was sad and someone had bought me a cheesecake. So,
what's the name of that podcast?
It's called "There's Always Next Year" because that's the thing that keeps us New York Jets fans going.
Yeah, it used to be the thing that kept us Cubs fans going until they went and won the World Series.
Yeah, I'm still bitter about that. I'm a Dodgers fan.
Oh, okay.
I was rooting for you guys once you got there. But
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
All right, so unintentional mentors. This idea popped into my head because I created a meme a few weeks ago of someone standing triumphantly on top of a mountain. And it says, some people are motivational for none of the reasons they think they are.
That's valid.
Yeah. And it got me thinking about the people in, especially in nonprofit, where it seems like nonprofit is the only industry in the world where a volunteer who is in a completely unrelated industry has power over you and tells you how to do your job.
You'd be surprised.
Oh, would I?
You would be surprised.
Okay. Well, let's talk about unintentional mentors and those people who motivate us in spite of themselves. You had an article recently in Atlas Obscura, which I will link in the show notes, and in it you talk about the incident that moment when you made a decision to become a champion of Appalachian cuisine. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about that?
Well, I want to say, like, for editorial purposes and for article purposes, it's very easy to, or it's almost a necessity to crystallize that thought into like one moment. Mm-hmm. It took a long time, and it was a lot of things. Sure. But everyone seems to latch on to these couple of moments with this certain chef.
Who will remain nameless. He's pretty well known, and the place I was working at was pretty well known as well. Luckily, I worked in a few places in New York, so no one's going to be able to necessarily pinpoint it. But one of the moments was pretty smarmy. I was talking about greasy beans, which I've waxed poetically about for years and years and years. This pole bean that's indigenous to down here that I love to death, and you can't find very many places. And you know, if you're not from here, you know, in the late 2000s, like there was nobody that had any idea what the hell a greasy bean was. So I remarked that I would love to be cooking a pot of greasy beans instead of doing the crazy esoteric thing that I was working on at that time. And
the chef remarked, and he's like, "What the hell is a greasy bean? Like, you want like a poorly cooked bean with like a bunch of grease on? Like, that's that's not something I want to hear from one of my line cooks. Like, is your palate shot? Like,
Yeah.
So that was one moment where I was kind of like taken aback a little bit, and that's one of the times when I started realizing like how valuable the food is to Appalachia, because it's something that's inherently ours. And then there's this was an ongoing thing, and actually I'll get to that after I talk about the one that's in the article. The one in the article is when he laid down this book that is revered in Southern food culture. There's articles about it from the Southern Foodways Alliance. This book has been honored by the James Beard Foundation. And for me, it was a very complicated book because a lot of the connotations that came from people that kind of twisted the meaning behind it. And this book is called White Trash Cooking. And it was, the name of the author actually escapes me right now, and I feel terrible about that. But he was actually a gay man in the South in Florida who was embracing the inherent craziness of the food culture that he grew up in due to subsistence. Not that dissimilar to embracing anything about Appalachian food. But his this book is a lot about like, it's called White Trash Cooking, and it's about like, you know, the crazy weird stuff that his aunt or his mother or his family would make based off of things that they would get at the gas station or things that they, you know, they had to get to survive. So it's not that dissimilar. I've always seen that correlation between that and a lot of parts of the South. But just the title, you know, the title for him was embracing what he came from and embracing the label that had gone on and trying to shift the narrative. But a lot of people didn't get to that tongue-in-cheek portion of it and just said, "Oh yeah, that's white trash as hell." Like, yeah, okay, and
yeah,
and this chef kind of utilized that to talk down to me about what I wanted to do in regards to food from my heritage and growing up in Central Appalachia. And he slammed the book down and he said, "So this is what you want to do. You want to cook white trash food? I don't think you need to be in my kitchen if that's what you're doing." In so many words.
Wow.
So I kind of sucked it up, and it was kind of it was almost like a challenge moment. It was like somebody like really that was one of the moments that really pushed me over the edge and said, "Well, screw all this. This is what I'm going to do." One of the things that this chef would do quite often, every day he would come in, and this is the thing that I think speaks most to the unintentional mentorship portion, because it taught me a ton, good and bad. He would come in every single day, and we opened for service at 5:00. And the station setups for everyone's station were very intricate. This was the everything about this restaurant was super intricate. Everything's on gram scales, like, you know, so everything's to like the nth. We're working with hydrocolloids. We're working with all kinds of molecular gastronomy kind of stuff. So, I mean, everything's very precise. And every day at 3:00, he would come in and he would throw away a station's. He would just pick a random one, all the mise en place for that station. And mise en place is a term that chefs use without even thinking about it. And
that's
I'm
right.
saying the word,
I think a lot of people understand it's having everything in its place.
Exactly, that's what it means. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all your prep, all your setup, and it being in place and being proper. And he would walk up at the station and throw every single bit of it away.
Oh my God.
And it would just be at random. It wouldn't just be because, like, oh, your carrots aren't cooked properly, or oh, you know, you don't have enough xanthan gum in that liquid. It would just be at random. And when he was angry, it was even worse. But what I came to realize as I got older was one of the things that he was doing was, first and foremost, he united the entire kitchen against him. So we were all united, and we all made sure, and this is kind of a dick move, but we would all come in about 3 hours early and work off the clock before our shift even started to make sure that we had a buffer time so that when someone's mise en place got thrown away, we were all at a point where we could actually jump in and pick up everything that needed to happen on that station, and be there for that person. So the free labor part's kind of a dick move, but what he really created an atmosphere of everyone having each other's back, because we knew that somebody was going to get screwed over.
Yeah.
But we never knew who. And we all hated him for it, but we all leaned on each other knowing that, okay, I'm running late on my stuff, so can somebody pick up one of my things so that at 3:00 when this isn't happening, and it was that's the way it was, and it was across all of the stations, all of the, anything from pastry to saute to garnish. I mean, everything. Like we all.
Oh my God.
We all learned everything because we all had to prep everything for everyone. Mm-hmm. But we all also learned to rely on each other and know that, if something's bad, like we all have each other's backs, and it was a terrible way of going about it in my mind.
Yeah.
The second I walked out of that kitchen, I was like, I don't want to ever be that guy. But as I've gotten older, I saw what he did, and I think that there's a lot more positive ways to do that. And that's what I've worked. One of the things I've worked heavily on in my career is creating that same kind of thought process in a kitchen, that kind of familial, everybody has each other's backs kind of thing, without being a horrible asshole.
So how have you found is a good way to do that?
Well, one of the ways is I think that uniting someone in a common goal is the biggest thing, and the easiest way to do that is to unite someone against something. I don't go that route, but I try to make sure that everyone has a vested interest in what we're doing. So everyone has an item on the menu that is either their concept or, it could be just they come up with the idea, or it could be even like as far as to soup to nuts, like they came up with everything. Everyone has, equal say when we do menu planning. We do menu planning exercises where like we will just take days where we just come in and cook what we want. And then we go, okay, how can we work this into the menu?
Oh, that's cool.
It's mainly giving people that vested interest and not being a dictator like this person, kind of came across as. It's doing the opposite of going, I'm no different than you. We're all a piece in this gear that's this cog in this machine. I might have some different responsibilities, but it doesn't matter what cog isn't working. It's going to cause the machine to stop. So we're all on an equal playing field, and we're all here together doing this. And I never, ever ask anyone to do anything that they have not seen me do themselves. Yeah. I will never ask someone to do a deep clean and pull everything out, and everyone's seen me do it.
Yep. I'm the same way.
It's creating that level playing field of going, you know what, I'm your boss, but also
we're all in it.
I'm equally as important as you are.
Yeah.
I just might be steering the ship, but I can't steer the ship if you weren't pushing the rudders or,
exactly,
or moving the sail. That's kind of the thing.
Yeah, that leadership by example. Or it's funny how these unintentional mentors build unity.
Yeah.
So I guess the lesson from it is you can build unity against something, which is negative, or you can build unity by giving ownership of the pieces, and that's a more positive way of approaching it. So my unintentional mentor in terms of building unity was when I was with the Chicago Humanities Festival. The woman who was the executive director was a horrible boss and very creative and wonderful in some ways, but she was a crazy maker. And so we would be planning this 11-day festival all year, or planning a one-off event or something. Yep. And at the 11th hour, she would decide scrap the whole thing, or much like throwing away the mise en place, right?
Yep.
Like we would have everything ready to go, and she would just trash it, and so we all had to
Scramble.
Yep. Exactly, and figure out how to mitigate the damage.
Yep.
And that definitely built unity among the staff. In fact, it built so much unity that the day that it came out in the newspaper she was fired by the board, we all got together for drinks.
Yep.
I mean, I hope that when something happens to me in a major life event, people will gather for drinks, but it'll be to remember me fondly.
I know that people will gather for drinks. I don't know about the fondness of all of it, but I know that everyone will definitely gather for drinks.
Yeah. What struck me about your unintentional mentor was how he helped you guys build that versatility and adaptability. Mm-hmm.
But I think that speaks again to like what your unintentional mentor is doing as well. Like when you create chaos, you're forcing adaptability.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're making everyone learn how to adapt on the fly. I mean, that's the most adaptable point you can be at.
Yeah.
And you have no choice other than to rely on each other at those points.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why I've never subscribed to that thought process, because it's so forced. I think there are merits. I think it works. If not for the flip side of me walking out of that kitchen and going, I never want to be like that. I want to find a better way and a more constructive and positive way of doing this. Mm-hmm. If not, if not for even that, like I think that it works, but it's just not how I ever want to do it.
Yeah, seriously, same. When I approached you about this topic of unintentional mentors, you jumped on. I don't think you've ever texted me back so quickly. So what popped into your head when I first said that?
Well, my mind kind of went all over the place on the topic because we just stopped at that, and one of my favorite shows of all time is Scrubs. So I started thinking about the relationship between JD and Dr. Cox, and how I personally have tried to draw from portions of the way I manage and work from Dr. Cox.
Oh, yeah.
And then I started thinking about my role as a mentor and how it's not anything I ever sought. So I feel like anyone that is a mentor is inherently a unintentional mentor, unless you have something that's kind of wrong with your brain. I feel like if you set out, unless you're a teacher,
right?
If you set out to try to mold people, you've got something that's not going right, and you might not have the best intentions. Yes, you might not have the best intentions. So I feel like anyone that is in a mentorship role has gotten there unintentionally, for good or bad. Yeah. And that was one of the things that kind of stuck in my head, and I kind of reached back and I started looking at all my mentors and how they got to where they are, and how they act and how they have shaped me and also other people that I know. And it kept coming back to, for good or bad, all of them were unintentional, whether it be Ronnie Lundy or the chef in New York for me, or even John Fleer, who I consider one of my, actually Ronnie and John Fleer are two of my biggest mentors, and my friend Sean, Sean is it's hard to call someone that is the exact same age as you and you've known since you were 5 a mentor, but there's been a lot of points in my career and in my life where he has been a mentor, and I know that's not what he's trying to do. He's trying to be a good friend, but because of his stature and what he does and his abilities, it kind of morphs into that. So
Travis is talking about Chef Sean Brock.
Yes.
That is the Sean.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
But that was one of the things that really kind of struck me about this, was I was like, this can go any way, shape, or form on this. There's so much depth to this thought process of unintentional mentors. Mm-hmm. So I was just excited to see where you were going with it and where the conversation was going to go, and where it took me in kind of stepping back and almost like a gratitude assessment of of the mentors that I've had in my life and how they did it and how I kind of value what came out of my relationship with them.
So let's talk about then, because when I first thought about it, it was about the dickheads who motivated me to do great things.
Yeah.
But then there's also the positive side of unintentional mentorship where someone can just say something and it sticks with you.
Yep.
And so an unintentional mentor in a positive way in my life was the general director of Lyric Opera of Chicago, artist Kranick. She taught me how to treat artists. That you don't have to be like the baton throwing, spear chucking diva. You can actually be kind to people, and they'll still produce amazing art.
Yeah.
Who's someone who unintentionally mentored you in a positive way?
From that specific aspect, or just
anything that pops into your head?
So one of the biggest ones is it may not be. Well, I think it's unintentional and unexpected. And it was Ronnie Lundy. Ronnie was someone that I revered. Like her books, specifically Stack Beans. What was it? Crap, I can't remember it.
Do you want to look it up?
Well, yeah, it's like three different. It's something stack cakes and honest fried chicken.
Okay.
And she's going to kill me for not knowing the name, but I'm going to leave that
you
in.
Better,
we're
going to leave that in? Okay.
Yeah, leave it in. I want her to text me in anger.
We love you, Ronnie.
She was someone that influenced me a ton. Like that book was one of the first books that I ever read really embracing coming from Appalachia, and it goes into like talking about Appalachian food, but also getting food memories from people like Dwight Yoakam, even because she had done a lot of work in music, like interviewing in music and music writing as well. And that book really stuck out to me, and it was a book that I would mention to people, and it's shuck beans, stack cake, honest fried chicken.
Whew. Oh, so glad you came up with that.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I call them leather britches now because everyone else does. I always called them shuck beans growing up, so it's almost out of sight, out of mind. Saved it. That book, it was something. It was a book that I would mention to people, and some people that were in Southern food would get it, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I remember that book. I read that book." And then a lot of people would go, "Oh, I've never read that. What's a shuck bean? What's a stack cake? And what does honest fried chicken even mean?" So they would just automatically question the title.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, so I'd have to go into it a little bit, and they're like, "Oh, well, if I ever see it, I'll pick it up." And one random day when I was working in Richmond, a friend of mine, Nicole Lang, she was doing some food writing stuff, and her husband owned my favorite record shop, and she was also a baker. She was I would go buy whoopie pies off of her and stuff. Like she was a total sweetheart. And one day, just on Facebook, she had become friends with Ronnie Lundy on Facebook, and Ronnie had put out kind of a call to arms on who's doing stuff with sorghum. And Nicole was like, "Oh man, Travis is doing stuff with sorghum. You should contact Travis." And Nicole didn't tell me that she had mentioned this or passed along my email or anything, but I think even she didn't think anything would come of it. But 2 days later, I get an email in my inbox from Ronnie Lundy, and
did you freak out?
I did. I was like, "Oh my god!" She wants one of my recipes in her book. I don't even know. And that was the first time I theoretically met or even conversed with Ronnie, and she kind of morphed into someone that's guided me through a lot of funky points in my life, but also helped me so much in being able to gather some steam and headway and being able to have a restaurant that is Appalachian focused. And she's been there to coach me through every point of the way, whether it be helping me deal with someone that doesn't believe chow chow is what I believe chow chow is, because that's a very hyper regional thing in Appalachia, or even guiding me through how to continue working while you're going through like a bad relationship point. Like she was just random. Like it was just random. Like she went from being someone that influenced me to being somebody that's like being a legitimate all around mentor to me, and never expected it. And I don't think it was ever intentional on either parts. It just kind of morphed into that kind of relationship, and it was weird, crazy, but I love it.
Oh, it's pretty awesome.
And I'm so thankful for it.
Yeah. Do you ever, did people ever come up to you and tell you that you are they're like North Star, they're guiding whatever?
I do occasionally. I do get that. I do get that from a lot of my own cooks, but I do get that from a lot of cooks in the region that have moved away, or even people that have moved down here and just wanted advice on how to approach cooking food here without being appropriative, or being able to cook their food like what they come from, what their heritage is, whether it be someone just from Jersey that wants to do Italian food, or someone that has Vietnamese heritage that wants to come down here and incorporate that in. There have been a lot of people that have thrown that at me, and I'm never really good at dealing with it.
No, you're really bad at it.
I'm
actually,
terrible at it. I got turned into a fourth grader trying to ask out a girl. I just like look down at my shoes and like kind of just go, "Oh shucks, thanks." One of the things I look at in mentorship, and one of the things I've been very like conscious of, because I realize that I do have impact on people's careers and their lives. And one of the things that I've, as I was saying, been very intentional about is being a mentor isn't just coaching someone through a career. It really is kind of walking through the parallels of a career and a life, and helping them to achieve that balance that even I haven't been able to achieve. But
But you know what it looks like,
I came up
right?
at a different time. I don't know what it looks like, but I came up at a different time where, when I was being taught by, French chefs and, angry chefs and people that were like, no, if you don't work 12 hours, 14 hours a day, you're not dedicated to your craft. And I sacrificed a lot of time and a lot of years and a lot of relationships because of that. And this goes back to seeing what you want out of mentorship situations, of going, you didn't teach me what to do, you taught me what not to do. And that's, as you were saying in the beginning, like that's equally a mentor as someone that was positive. As long as you're able to ascertain that and gather what you need out of it. Yeah,
still valuable.
Yeah.
So I think the skill in that is learning how to take the garbage and recycle it into something positive.
Yep.
Helpful. Yeah. What would you say to your unintentional mentor if you ran into them today?
I had this conversation with a friend of mine who is she is a very, very famous chef now, who we worked together at this restaurant, and we reflected back on we got on like the point of like, when did we actually meet? And we were like, oh yeah, we met in New York there, and we were like, oh my God. And we started like reminiscing about all of like the bad things, all of like the quixotic, weird little, esoteric things about the restaurant and what the chef would do. And we got to that point, and we were like, what bad could her and I actually have to say about this situation? Because her being insanely famous, and me, having a pretty good career, and at least having my name, known.
I mean, you're doing what you want to do.
Yeah, and we both of us did. And we came out pretty okay, and we took something out of the situation. Like, how could we go back and be angry?
Yeah.
And we had that conversation of what we would say, and what I said I would say is very specific to this person. So I will say, like, if I saw him right now, I would probably give him a hug and say, thank you for helping me find the way I wanted to run a kitchen. Because he did, very much so. And he did help me find what was honest and true to me in food. Because, working in that kind of it's definitely not a fad because it's still going, and I still embrace it, to a lot of extent. But working within like molecular gastronomy and super high level fine dining, just didn't seem as genuine to me as what I wanted and what I got out of food growing up here. And going through that and learning it taught me that, and it taught me that there are things in that I think that I can apply and make my own chapter in the book of Appalachian food that's a little bit different than everything else. But he really did like teach me how I wanted to be a manager and how I wanted to work with people. Because I learned how I didn't.
Right. Yeah.
Or how I didn't want to.
Yeah. My unintentional mentor taught me that I know more than I think I know. That was the thing she always said to me. You know more than you think you know. When she'd be like, I need you to go write a thing or fill out a thing or create a thing. And I'd try to get more information from her. And she'd be like, no, just go do it. You know more than you think you know.
That's really funny because I say that all the time.
I say that all the time now too. And I want to kick myself Also, by the way, that line made it into my TEDx talk.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing.
That made it into my TEDx.
All my cooks those things because they will come and they will ask me like the most granular kind of questions, and I'm like,
right. Well, that
you know more than you think you know. Like, I don't have to walk you through every part of this.
Right. Also, we all have Google in our pockets now, but at some point, you need the leader of the organization to say, this is my vision. This is how I want you to present it. This is like, this is the concept. Like, she did none of that. And then when I got it wrong, she got mad.
Yeah.
And then just blew it up.
You have to give people the tools. But the thing is, once you hand over those tools, they have to be able to like.
Yeah.
That's the thing. When I'm asking someone to make mashed potatoes or something, and they want to come, ask me to try it every single time. I'm like, no, you know how this should be. Potatoes. Yeah. Granted, I am super particular. Like, if you ask any cook that's ever worked for me.
Okay, tell me about your mashed potatoes.
There have been at least probably 35 that have been fired over mashed potatoes.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so what can go wrong with mashed potatoes?
Everything. So potatoes are inherently starchy, but also inherently waxy. Waxiness happens upon a reduction in heat and agitation. So if your potatoes aren't hot enough and you are mixing them too much, they will come out like a melted crayon.
Oh, gluey.
Yes.
Yes, I've done that. It's disgusting. Okay.
But also potatoes need lots of salt. They need lots of white pepper, and they need tons of cream and fat. And I've got this one point where when they're being mixed that every cook that's ever worked for me knows like how it should look. But that's the biggest thing in the world. And I will never ever give someone a definitive recipe for it because it's really hard in a restaurant to go, okay, you have 28.7256 pounds of potatoes, which means you need 1.72 quarts of it's. I don't want to make everyone pull down a ratio every single day, but I also want them to understand the concepts that are being involved in making it, because you start looking at the heat, the gluiness, and you start looking at the emulsification that occurs with the fat and the starch, and it's concepts that transcend potatoes and go into so many other things. And in food, making simple food is the hardest thing in the world in a restaurant.
Oh.
Because if you don't make it absolutely perfect, it's no different than what you're getting at Fridays or Applebee's or even like a crappy little diner that's pulling them out of, or even KFC. I mean, if you don't do it properly, it's no different than just the regular old crap. And I don't deal with that shit. Like,
wow, I have never heard someone so passionate about mashed potatoes.
Oh my God. Next time in the restaurant, specifically ask one of my sous chefs, for everyone listening, if you're in taste, come ask the guy who has the Rubik's Cube. Also, that's one of the things I'm obsessed with. I always have a Rubik's Cube in my restaurant.
Okay.
But he's learned it and he loves it. But
nice.
His name is Caleb.
Okay.
He has very curly dark hair and glasses and a beard, which is slightly different from me. He's also skinnier and younger. But he literally dealt with me. I made him make mashed potatoes for me every day for 3 years.
Oh my gosh. Is that like your version of slapping water?
Yep. Every single day. Like, this is you. I'm not going to be an asshole to you, but this, until you get this perfect X amount of times, this is what you're doing. And he moved on, and in between when I had Milton's in St. Paul and when I opened Taste, he went back to, he's from Wytheville, and that's where he started with me, was when I was consulting at the Bowling Wilson Hotel's restaurant, Gray's. He went back there and kind of became the interim head chef, and he destroyed people on mashed potatoes because he knew 100%. Like, he pulled that and was like, okay, I've got this. Like, I can make people learn by this. And
oh wow!
And it started working a little bit.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of what my equivalent of that would be in like nonprofit or directing or something. Probably it's some version of the you know more than you think you know.
Yeah.
Like, just go figure it out.
Yeah.
Like don't make me spoon feed you.
Yeah.
You can figure it out. And like whatever it is, will be fine. You know, that's the thing. Like for me, I mean, I make a festival. You know, like I'm not sending people to the moon with a slide rule and a sheet of notebook paper.
I am pouring wine though.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we need to kind of put everything in perspective. Right. And, I mean, your point about mashed potatoes is true. Like, people don't go out to eat so they can eat something that they could have gotten at KFC for $2.
But also, like, my biggest thing about that, that's the easy way of explaining it. But it goes back to if you put that much intention and care in the most simple thing in the entire building, I know damn well I can trust you with anything beyond that.
Yes. You know what? That is something. Okay, that sparks a little something. So, like, Artist Kranick, going back to her.
Okay.
I feel like she had that same like mindset for all of us. So when I worked there, I was an admin assistant in the development department, and the organization was running a $100 million capital campaign. Ooh, yeah. Okay. And she said, everybody will wear suits, even though we are an opera. We're like we're a performing arts company. Everybody will wear a suit because our building is downtown. We're trying to raise $100 million, and damn it, we better all look like we deserve it.
Yeah.
So that was one thing, and then the other thing was one of my favorite stagehands on opening night. Okay, this is
okay.
So. Opening night at Lyric Opera is a gala affair where even the stagehands wear a tuxedo.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
And my favorite stagehand, I have a picture of him somewhere, like long, sort of scraggly hair, long, sort of like facial hair. And this is in the early 90s when people just didn't do that. And he was the head armorer. So he made all the swords and things. And we were backstage, and opening night that year, I think, was Aida. And
Aida or Aisha?
No, Aida.
Well, I know you said when you said Aisha, or no, when you said Aida, Aisha by Another Bad Creation immediately popped in my head.
Oh God, no. So it was Aida, and I remember going backstage to just sort of hang out for a little while because my big job was making sure that the trumpeters made it after intermission from the Opera House to the hotel across the loop for the grand
ball.
Yeah. That was my one job, to ride in a limo with trumpeters. It was awesome. It's a good gig.
Yeah.
But so I was backstage, and I remember the stagehand coming into the room where I was sitting, And he goes, I don't know why everyone's so pumped over this. It's not my favorite Verdi. And I'm like,
Who are you?
Who are you? Yeah. Who are you? I work here. I don't have a favorite Verdi,
yeah.
you know? Like, oh my God. But when even the stagehand has a favorite Verdi, you know, I think that's the equivalent of kick-ass mashed potatoes every
100%.
time.
It's if you can trust somebody with,
that ownership. Like, if you can trust somebody with the foam swords.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. I just think it's really cool how you can build ownership of something and then it runs smoothly. Like without you.
And
bit.
That goes back to one thing that a lot of people that I talk to in the restaurant industry that I try to convey and translate to them is that the biggest and most important thing you can do for yourself, for your staff, but also for your business is to be a mentor and to convey knowledge. Like, don't hold it and don't feel like it should be proprietary. Like, once you make it proprietary, you have ruined your nights off, you have ruined everything, and you have done a disservice to everyone that is in your building.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to not only be vulnerable to the point of giving people your knowledge, but also be able to nurture that.
Yeah.
And it'll do wonders for you. It'll give you a night off. It'll give you, like, I swear, like, a lot of people will ask me, and they're like, well, so-and-so left the restaurant and they're managing at this place. Like, how does that make you feel? I'm like, I'm proud as hell. Like, that, the greatest thing that I can ask for is having one of my staff go on and do their own thing and expound upon what I've given them. Like, that means that I did a good job. And that means that if they're willing to do that in the job that they're leaving me for, that means that they imparted the knowledge that I imparted on them. Odds are to the people that they trained, because that's one time where trickle down actually works.
Yes, exactly. Trickle down information.
Yes.
That's when it works.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Don't hoard your info, people. Like,
no, share it.
God, that makes me crazy. Here's an unintentional mentor. I had a board member, like, just keep secrets, and it blew up.
Oh, God.
And I was like, well, if that isn't an argument for transparency, I don't know what is.
Oh, yeah.
Like, now, and ever since then, I mean, before then I was pretty transparent, but ever since then I've just been like, here is everything all the time.
Yeah.
Can you be too transparent? Probably a little bit.
Probably. I can be often.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. There are certain lines I won't cross.
Me as well. But, like, sometimes I'm just like, when I'll lay out a dish for someone, like, I will be, like, too transparent. I'm like,
do you over explain?
I over communicate all the time. I'll lay down, I'm like, okay, everybody, this is a dish that, take for instance, like the trout dip at
oh,
Taste.
Yes, which is delicious.
When I talk to the servers when they start working, I'm like, so let me tell you about this dish. This is a smoked trout that we get from Sunburst Farms in North Carolina, and it's pureed with a little bit of cream cheese, and then go through the recipe. But then I'm like, this dish kind of manifested itself because when I was living in New York City and I was super poor, and then I'll give them the apartment number I was at. Then I'm like, this is the street that I was living on, and I used to go down because I would drink too much Mad Dog 2020, and I'd go down to Russ and Daughters in the morning, and I'd stand in line for 3 hours, and I'd get this thing called the Super Heapster, and, like, don't say the Super Heapster to people because, like, I don't know, like, how anyone's going to take that, but in New York, it's totally, and, like, I just go on this whole thing about this bagel. Like, I go on, like, a 25, 30-minute dissertation on this bagel called the Super Heapster at Russ and Daughters. That is one of my favorite things in the world. And by the end, people are like,
oh, my God.
Shit, you really like that bagel. And, like, that's all they get out of it. And I'm like, okay, I was overly transparent. I should have just ended it with, this is based on a dish I really liked. This is what you needed to know. You didn't need to know that I lived off of, like, what's now Joey Ramone Boulevard and, like,
It reminds me of that. There's an episode of Portlandia where the couple is like trying to get to know their chicken.
Oh yeah. And they're like, well, we've got to go. Like, are you okay if we go down to the farm? And because that's like the second episode. Like, yeah.
Oh my God. Oh wow. All right. Well, anything else you want to say about, I don't know, unintentional mentorship? Any like final, any good quotes that stick with you from people who've mentored you, like either on purpose or by accident?
Yes. The biggest one I ever got, or the one that sticks with me the most right now, and this is kind of speaks to what I was just talking about being open and being willing to share, and but it also speaks to that ability to have some life balance. It actually came from Sean Brock, and oddly enough, I got this text while I was sitting at the Pizza Inn buffet right here in Abingdon, Virginia.
Wow.
I can't remember how we got to this point. I think it was beginning points of sour relationship and things like that. But also, I was leaving Milton's in St. Paul at the time, and it was a funky point. And Sean texted me, and literally verbatim, it went, "Shut up, dumbass, comma." If you recall, when you're on a plane, they tell you to put your mask on first because you ain't worth a shit to anybody if you aren't okay. Be okay.
That is
and
awesome.
That was one of the smartest, most like slap me in the face moments I've ever had. Like, and sitting in a Pizza Inn, and he, I texted him back and said, "Holy shit!" And he said, "Yeah."
That is amazing.
But that was one of the biggest things that I ever needed to hear as a person, but also as someone that runs a business, someone that is a mentor. You can't impart these things to people, and you can't, be everything to everyone if you don't take care of yourself. And that was a big one for me.
That is a good one. That's like stop setting yourself on fire to keep others warm.
Yeah. And put so bluntly, like
be okay.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us have a hard time with that.
Yeah. Or just the shut up, dumbass, listen, like, that kind of thing. It was just like, I legit felt like Sean was sitting in the booth with me and just slapped me in the face and said, just pointed at me and was like, stop, shut up.
Yeah.
Listen. And, it worked. It got me to a much better place.
Well, cheers to that.
Cheers. There you go. Can you get that on? Does I
don't know.
Translate?
Here, let's do.
There you go.
Oh, that's beautiful.
There you go.
That's a beautiful one. And cheers to everyone listening. Remember, you can hear Sean and Travis live on Wednesday, March 4th at Barter Theater. Tickets are available at bartertheater.com. And by the way, half of each ticket sold goes back to the Virginia Highlands Festival. So it is a fundraiser for the Highlands Festival. I hope to see some of our listeners there at this event. I know I've got people globally listening to the podcast. So those of you who are in Australia right now, shout out to you. And I probably won't see you on March 4th. But thank you for listening. If you got some value out of this and know somebody who might like to hear it, please share it with them. Subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. If you'd like to get this podcast and more cool stuff in an email, I have an email list. You can sign up at virtualexecutivedirector.com. And if you would like to get peer-to-peer support around the clock, then ask to join the Executive Director Mastermind on Facebook. And keep in mind, I have 3 questions when you ask to join the group, 3 questions that you have to answer. Otherwise, I automatically decline your request because they're easy questions. It's like, what nonprofit do you lead? And how did you hear about us? And and what's your biggest challenge right now? So answer the questions, because I feel bad when I just automatically decline people, but we're busy, right? And I don't charge anybody to be in the group. So that is that. That's my stump speech about that. But we're there for you 24/7. There's always someone awake because we are a global group of people. Thanks again for listening. And remember, we shine brighter together.
Follow me down to the river. We can wash our cares away. Don't look back on yesterday. It's only a memory. Follow me.